All right, y'all. Really wanted these banners, but we'll have to screen share instead, and that's okay. Yeah, we'll have to screen share instead. I'm glad YouTube connected. It's giving me a little trouble. You are not the owner of this account. What? Who says? Welcome to Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. Of course, the best place to follow us, where you can follow us everywhere, is right here. Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. The new public polling project is up. We have time to fund it. So I figured put it up there, put it new, and let it roll. The link below, when you go there, you'll see all the prior projects and the one that just got put up, which is at a big fat 0 right now. Better to be early than try to scramble to do it like we did last time. And honestly, even though we did do it last time we scrambled, we were like 80% funded or something. So it really wasn't that bad. All right, let me just play this little thing from Gravian that is at the center of what I'm going to talk about today, because I wanted to pause and talk about something totally different, because of course it's relevant to everything else that we discuss. It gets to the heart of it, which of course is the media's behavior, how they are the vehicle which information is delivered. Political information is delivered to people. And they go on, and then they sponsor polls along with media and other, competitive outlets and universities. And then you have the private guys like us, and you have the not so private guys like others who put out their own polls for either maybe they're trying to get notoriety, or maybe they're funded by a nefarious entity or political entity, and they're trying to get a narrative across. The difference is that should be expected and known versus the media, which is expected, or at least carries this veneer of impartiality. But they, of course, are not. So then we're all supposed to just go on this little charade and pretend as if the polling they sponsor to be conducted is, in fact, separate from whatever the hell else they do, and that they're impartial as well. Which, of course, has not been the case. Perhaps no story, because this was a huge story of the 2024 presidential election. No story right now is underscoring this problem, right, that lies at the center of this industry, more so than this Jake Tapper story about Jake Tapper running around now selling books about how he's the superhero here who came in and delivered the truth about Joe Biden being senile to the American public. And here is a fantastic montage, because let's play the montage, and when we come back, I'll explain more.
Makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
It's very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You have no I can't. This is so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
President Biden embraces his stutter, talking about it, while Trump mocks it, exaggerates it, belittles it. He's sharp physically. I mean, mentally.
Yeah.
I think the question is physically, right?
Right.
More so?
Right.
Right. And the guy who's his chief opponent is only 3 or 4 years younger than him.
Exactly.
I mean, you have questioned President Biden's age, mental fitness, ability to lead. Of those supporting Biden, you said, quote, "Shame on all of you pretending everything is okay. You're leading us and him into a disaster." Do you worry that you damaged him at all? I don't doubt that you got hugs and handshakes behind closed doors today, and maybe even publicly, some of them because they like you personally. But I've heard a lot of really nasty stuff about you from your Democratic colleagues. Sure. I mean, just like, what is he thinking? Exercise in narcissism. I mean, false claims.
let's stop. False claims, he just comes out to say, but I do have to stop and simply point out that at the center of this debate, at the time he was president already, all right, which I also am going to go ahead and say, look, the major problem here is that now there are people positioning themselves as heroes. I'm not going to run the clip, but there's another clip from someone else being interviewed by someone else we're going to focus on today. And it's Senator Michael Bennet from Colorado, of course, a Democrat. And he is pointing out how, you know what, I was saying this for years. I was saying this before I tried to fire the flare in the air. Same thing with Dean Phillips, who I give a little bit more credit to because, of course, he did something that was difficult. He tried to run against a sitting president, and he openly told Politico and others, which is dangerous to do if you are a Democrat. He openly told them Joe Biden is not well. He's senile. He went around to fundraisers. He went around in entertainment circles, and Joe Biden is not well. Basically, we all know he's not well. We, meaning we, not the people at home. They're being lied to, like Roosevelt doesn't have polio type lie. They're being lied to. We all know the truth, and we can't run him against Donald Trump because if we do, he won't make it. What Dean Phillips was saying was not that this is wrong to lie to the American public. It was wrong to begin with, to cover it up, because as I'm going to get into in a little bit, these people are all complicit in this. Joe Biden has been senile a lot longer than you think, folks. Dean Phillips had the argument, which is why he doesn't deserve the credit that now he's trying to take and others are trying to take, because his problem was really that he didn't think they would be able to pull this charade and much longer. They didn't think that he was capable. The drugs weren't working, folks. And I make jokes sometimes and I say, the needles in his ass weren't working anymore. They weren't needles. They were pills. Everybody knows he was taking all these crazy stuff, cutting edge to try to get a moment of clarity throughout the day when he do. Other people know that. Emerald Robinson, before she was fired from Newsmax, was on the White House press corps, was being told by Secret Service agents. There was a time when Joe Biden was in the White House, in the residency of the White House, running around, basically had crapped himself, mumbling in the middle of the night. They all knew this. They knew it even before. And Dean Phillips just didn't think he could get through it without them getting caught. That's very different than arguing this was wrong. This was morally wrong. This was a fraud perpetuated on the American public. We violated the trust and shit all over the sovereignty of the American voter and what it means and how the respect we're supposed to have for it. That's a very different argument than, he's not going to make it through this primary, because he's not going to be able to hide it. The wool will not be pulled over the eyes of the American public. I just had to stop in the middle of that and get that out, because that's different than some others. This guy right here is the caricature of everything that is wrong right now with our country, our politics, the polling industry, everything. He is all of it, quite literally personified.
To the Wall Street Journal about President Biden's mental fitness and acuity. He's 81, and his memory, it doesn't seem great. It's not horrible, but I don't understand the outrage. Quote, behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping, unquote. The Wall Street Journal is owned by News Corp, which is run by the Murdochs. Beyond the headline.
You hear that?
There is some critical nuance here. The article is mostly based on observations of Republicans, with former Speaker Kevin McCarthy the only one going on the record. They do note in the article that most of the criticism comes from Republicans. Have you heard any concerns from anyone who has met with President Biden about him seeming a little slower?
No.
The Russians are trying to make us and the public not trust our election integrity. Joe Biden has dementia, all this stuff.
Wonderful by Grabian. Wonderful job. Wonderful job. Really. But the truth is much worse. The truth is we can't even sit here today and say that Jake Tapper was complicit in this cover-up, and now he's trying to profit off of Joe Biden his political decline and his mental decline. I just want to say before we get back to the crux of why this is important with polling, because it really speaks to what they're capable of, doesn't it? It really, because you want your trust back, right? It really speaks to us, though, as Americans, and I am still one of them, despite what I do for a living. It speaks to me and every other American, just sitting with common sense, to what they are capable of doing. How far they are willing to go, how dishonest they're willing to be, how many lies they're willing to tell, how damaging and dangerous, outright dangerous, those lies they are delivering, how dangerous they're willing to deliver them. Sitting, by the way, in one of those clips was none other than Adam Schiff, who, despite the fact that he is now a U.S. Senator, he got a promotion from when he did this in the House, was one of the primary pushers, along with Jake Tapper, of the Russia hoax. You might remember that it, in fact, was Jake Tapper who first brought the dossier story that was published by the Daily Beast, because they have to throw it in a liberal rag magazine before it can make its way into what they call or consider as the veneer of mainstream media. It was Jake Tapper himself who cited that report, sitting there like, I'm just saying this is what's being reported by the Daily Beast. What you didn't know at home is that the rest of us for months knew all about that dossier. Everybody knew it was fake. Everybody knew that it was a money or an information laundering, disinformation op paid for by the Hillary Clinton campaign. You didn't know that at home, but when Jake Tapper was sitting there pretending as if this is some big revelation and the Daily Beast has put it out, CNN can't confirm. But the Daily Beast is reporting. That's how they inject stories like that, how they get the mainstream to talk about it. It is the green light. Usually it's the New York Times too, by the way, in written paper. So it's the old gray lady. They are the gatekeeper. When they do something like that, it is a wink to the rest of the media that it is okay now to start bringing or laundering that story into the public sphere. It was Jake Tapper who did that himself. And there's a lot more history on Jake Tapper. So when I go to X and I say, this is actually much worse than anybody is claiming. Oh, it's Jake. He was complicit in the cover-up, and now he's trying to cash in on a book. And when I go to X and I say, it's worse than that. This is the guy who picked up the phone when they called. And I literally mean this. I'm not saying this in some, crazy metaphor, or I'm trying to paint a picture to you or simplify how this is done. No, I am saying this literally happens. Only an email, maybe it's an email, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. I am saying this is the guy who they call to cover stuff up that they want covered up, or to smear somebody that they want smeared. What would we expect? And why? So why would we expect anything less? And the same is true of the polls. These people are willing to behave like this in their sphere, where they are supposed to care about the credibility of their work, the integrity of journalism. Okay? This is a joke. So if we shouldn't expect anything less out of Jake Tapper, why would we expect anything other than trash, fake, the word is fake, propaganda polling out of his organization? We're going to have somebody come on here in a little bit to talk about it, because, of course, he's directly involved. So I got a lot I got to get out here. But what I want to say today, and I want to point out today, is that the road back to some level of credibility certainly does not run through phony moral equivalence. And for those of you who don't know, and I'm going to show you one so you can understand what one is and you can watch it in real time. And I don't mean to pick on this guy because I have been picking on him lately, but not for nothing, he probably deserves it. And I think that maybe for a bit we all forgot he was one of them. Moral equivalence is a form of equivocation, often used, and I wanted these banners, so now I have to read them out for you, but I had these cool banners made up where I could show you it. Often used in political debates. It seeks to draw comparisons between different, even unrelated things to make a point that one is just as bad as the other or just as good as the other. This often is done as a rhetorical tactic to diminish, this is so crucial, to diminish the perceived severity of one action. And in this case, that one action is really a series of repeated actions, but constant dishonesty, constant deception, constant betrayal by the media in their official capacity as the so-called watchdogs of the halls of power and their polls that they sponsor to diminish the perceived severity of one action, many in this case, by comparing it to another. Here's another key thing. When you draw a moral equivalence in this fashion, when you do it this way, it is a form of what is called an informal fallacy, which is a special case for a false equivalence. But what is an informal fallacy, which is my other banner I have to just read to you? You are guilty of pushing or formulating an informal fallacy when you make an argument that honestly could formally be valid, but it is unsound because of the lack of truth of one or more of its premises. All right, so maybe you're making a valid point, but your premises are bullshit. Informal fallacies are characterized by the fact that although there is a connection between their premises and their conclusion, they have a valid form, their premises are unsupported. All right, so let's see if I can give you one right now. I had one right now as a foreign policy one. Okay. We have to attack them over there so we don't fight here. All right. It was an informal fallacy that was used to justify the war on terror. Maybe there will be a terror attack at home, but it doesn't necessarily mean that because we didn't go kill a bunch of people abroad, that is the actual reason for the terror attack at home. You understand what I'm saying? The occupation of the Holy Land by the infidels is the actual reason for the act of political terrorism. Going over there and killing them preemptively isn't exactly a justified action. Because these things may be connected, they may be related, and your argument may be valid. If you went over there and you killed them, then maybe you'd stop something in the future, but it's the premise of the argument is BS because the actual cause of the terror attack was not that we didn't go over there and kill them. It's because we were doing something else. All right. And that may be a little bit more complicated of an example, but I'm sure you get where I'm coming from here. Now I'm going to look. Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Jeb Bush. These were big pushers of, and I hate just using the term. I dislike just simply using the term moral equivalence because it doesn't project what is really going on. It's bogus. It's completely bogus. So what the media is asking you for, okay, in this case, Jake Tapper wants his credibility back. Jake Tapper is saying, something else really bad happened. So don't just blame me for what I did. Look at all what, because that's what his entire book is doing. And tons of Democrats on X right now. The media in general is doing this. And I'm going to play an extended clip of this, although I'm going to stop it at a certain point. But this host, ironically, is talking about truth and getting to the truth. And he himself is trying to take on the role as an august arbiter of the truth himself. And he's the watchdog over the media here. And yet he goes on to draw a moral equivalence, which is a completely bogus one. So in criticizing the media for their actions, and by the way, what they did is worse than lying to the American public that Roosevelt had polio. Roosevelt had polio, so he couldn't get out of a freaking wheelchair. Biden was senile. His disability was in the brain. He couldn't run the country. He never could. And by the way, this very same person we're about to play a clip of, in his conversation with that senator I was telling you about, brought up how they all saw it during 2017. Whoa, 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 whoa! That's years before he ran. Ladies and gentlemen, before I play this, I want to recall a story. She just got back, which is funny because at this time she had just gotten back. I am getting ready to go to a place where I can get in front of the camera and set up my equipment because I'm getting ready to do a stream to do a show about special elections. I'm going to talk to, later, I actually did jump out of my show and connect with Glenn Herman, who was like the only one still streaming super late that night. And there are primaries going on, and there was a special election going on, and Joe Biden's making a speech. And in that speech with Joe Biden, he makes that slip up that he's running for the Senate of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Biden, I'm trying for the Senate in the United States. And of course, we all had a giggle at that moment, but then Glenn and I were like, this really isn't funny. And I proceed to tell Glenn the story of how when I first got a glimpse of Joe Biden when he was running. He decided he was going to run. He's in Wilmington, Delaware. He comes out of this building, and I can't remember what the building was, brick building. The crowd is in the front. The media is in the front. I hadn't called Laura. I hadn't spoken to Laura. She had just gotten back doing something with the kids. And I said, after this is done, maybe I got a couple of minutes. I'm going to call Laura. Then I hear like something on the other side of the building, right? And I'm like, oh, they're over there. He comes out of the side of the building where there's a ramp. Laura's laughing. I can hear her in the other room already because she knows what I'm going to say. He doesn't come out of the building where there were a few steps to get down and speak to the reporters. Him and his team come out of the other side, and they're big doors. You know, the doors that only open one way, right? Like double metal doors. And so you can hear them when they open them, and that push mechanism. And you can hear clink, as they push open, and they come out with Joe Biden, and there's one on one arm and one on the other, and Joe Biden is doing this, what I called, this is why I started calling him Geriatric Joe on the show, because he comes out doing this, what I call the geriatric shuffle, okay? And his neck is all extended out like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons, right? And they're got both arms over there, and he's shuffling both feet like he's in a friggin' like a senior center in the villages or something. Well, worse, in the villages, they can take care of themselves. He can't speak properly, and it stunned me because I hadn't seen Joe Biden for several years. And I thought, okay, you know what? This is bad. Call Laura. She may have called me. I told her, oh my God, this is what I'm doing. You got to see this guy. It is bad. And I remember it like it was yesterday. I told Laura, I really asked her, how are they going to hide this from the American people? And I didn't immediately dismiss the fact that this guy could win this nomination and the presidency because I already knew what they would do. You heard Jake Tapper do it to the Wall Street Journal before. You heard him do it to in general, Republicans and his advancement of this, idea that anyone who criticized Joe Biden is just the Republicans and it's just a talking point. And it was not a talking point, and they knew it the whole entire time. And I knew they would hide him. They would use COVID, which is why, by the way, I think what I think about COVID. There was no way they would have been able to get away. Like Dean Phillips could know what Dean was worried about was that it wasn't COVID anymore. We can't hide him like this. Life is basically back to normal now. But during COVID, it wasn't. We were all hiding. Would it have been unreasonable, to conclude that Joe Biden wasn't campaigning and he was home because, it's a damn virus out there, man. I'm hunkered down in my house too. I'm on Grubhub. I got Publix delivering my groceries. I'll call Walmart. Pay a little extra for delivery. Like, it was reasonable. They could do it. They had the environment to do it. But don't think for a second that all of them didn't know. They did. And this is trying to be, swept under the rug with everything else they have done, including the Russia hoax, which Jake Tapper was a part of. He was a central figure in the Russia hoax because he brought it to mainstream cable news and mainstream TV, news TV, cable TV. When he did what we call regurgitation reporting, he was vomiting out the reporting of other people, in this case, the Daily Beast. Let me play this clip, though, because what they're asking you to do is ignore the sins that they have committed that have harmed you, and they're going to do so with moral equivalence and straw man arguments. And our guest is actually the straw man in this case. All right. But this is particularly disappointing because this guy we're going to run a clip of is parading around like he's the one who's going to earn the media's. Not only is he's going to take the media's job because the media has breached the trust. He's like coming out now as like the media industry's Dr. Phil or something. That's the role he's playing at the moment. And he's going to tell the media all what they've done wrong. Here's how you better behave. Daddy is home. I am going to teach you right from wrong. And don't worry, it's going to be okay. Daddy's here. The world will go back to being safe again for you. In the meantime, I'm going to cash in on it and get my slice of it. And then he goes on to do something that is no better than what they do. Here it is. Here's a false moral equivalence in real time.
And his team haven't done well. And to not have truth on that, very troubling. Here's another thing on the red side, okay? This is
let me just give you context. What he was saying basically is actually it's a double. It's a double criticism of the right, but he's talking about how the media deceived the public, and they did. He's talking about how the media deceived the public, and they're never going to earn their credibility back if they keep going on like this. He's even being critical of Jake Tapper in some cases. He then quickly, by the way, throws in these nuggets about the president's team, denying that whether or not the polls have been bad for them, and he has taken a hit in the polls. So I don't really know how this is even a segment with equal criticism, because it's not. And again, it's all, about, don't fall into the partisan trap. Find the truth. It doesn't matter if you're on the right or left. Your job is to try to, ally yourself with the truth, which as a premise, I completely agree with, of course, but I just don't think this is done. And that's the point of this. Or maybe he just fell short of it and he didn't realize what he did here, but we're going to show him, because here we go.
Polling. This is Benny Johnson hosting a program. And then he's talking to a Republican pollster, and they're basically saying all the polls that have come out in the last few days that show President Trump's numbers declining, his favorability, his job performance, his favorable ratings on things like the economy going down. They posit that this is a conspiracy, that these polls are all wrong. Here's part of their conversation.
Is it just like going right back to 2024? Is it going right back to 2020? Is it just like you just got to like start the machine all over again and produce produce fake polling results?
It feels like August and September. Like it feels exactly what happened. It's like, oh, we got a new entrant into the race, Kamala Harris. Let's see how the polling's going to do. And my numbers, it tightened a little bit, went from, Trump +5 down to about Trump +2. And my numbers stopped there and everybody else just kept going.
So here are these guys saying basically the polls are all wrong. They're in denial. Okay. Here's more denial. Okay. I read a tweet this morning from a conservative who wrote this. The media hates Trump more than it values the truth. The media hates Trump more than it values the truth. Okay, there's some irony there because I've just given you an example of things where Republicans are in denial about the truth.
Wait, before he goes on to the Joe Biden thing, let me just clarify something because we got multiple fallacies going on. Okay, there's informal and there are logicals going on. Like they're flying around, man. It's like it's all over the place. Mark saying that this is what it was like before 2024 is a provable, a demonstrably true statement. Mark isn't also then saying the president's approval numbers haven't fallen. They have fallen according to his own polling, mine as well. Everyone else who polled Trump correctly, we all had his numbers falling from, by the way, the stratosphere. Did anybody expect them to stay up there? The question is, how much have they fallen? And the argument cannot be, it cannot be compared to what he's about to compare it to. This isn't even close to the same thing, the denial of truth. And we're not, again, nobody is even denying the fact that the president's numbers were falling. What we were all arguing is that the polls themselves were exacerbating that decline. They were faking that decline. He was never -12, -18, -16, -14. That was a lie. Those are fake polls. I'm going to say it again. Fake polls. Okay? In case I need to slow it down for people's minds to understand. That is not the same as saying the president's numbers weren't falling. Those are two different things. Two totally different claims. But either way, it doesn't matter because they're not anywhere near this.
Okay. I talked about polling. The other example I could give you. And if you're fair-minded, you could come up with a lot of them. The president himself said these polls are fake. They're not fake. Doesn't mean the organizations that conducted them aren't habitually liberally biased. And that gets to where I think we have a real problem right now in trying to grapple this question of the trouble with truth. Because we can give lots of examples of the Democrats and the media not telling the truth. The biggest story that the Democrats have not been honest about is Joe Biden's mental decline. And we saw that on vivid display at the White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend. A guy named Alex Thompson won an award as one of the few reporters who wrote anything about Biden's mental acuity decline. Even he acknowledged in his remarks that he fell short and said the media fell short.
President Biden's decline and its cover-up by the people around him is a reminder that every White House, regardless of party, is capable of deception.
Isn't it funny, by the way? First of all, I hope you recognize that name. It happens to be at the bottom of the book right now. What book? Right. It is remarkable how the media can always come to the conclusion of their failures after a Democrat's been defeated and a Republican wins. The Iraq War. And then they pledge and promise to be better, to do better. And remember, either administration can lie to us. And by the way, why does he even have to state that? Why does he even have to make that statement? He just told them he's a Democrat. He just told the world he's a liberal. We have to remind ourselves that Democrats can lie too. Democrats lie more than anybody. What are you talking about? And why do you only suddenly come to these realizations, like you have these epiphanies during Republican administrations? You all of a sudden double down on what is the equivalent of like the Hippocratic Oath in, for medicine. You all of a sudden double down on your fealty to the truth when it's a Republican in the presidency. You forget all about that when it's a Democrat. You ever notice they learn these lessons during a Democrat administration? We have to do better. It looks like Obama was spying on us. Oh my God, Donald Trump's lying that Obama spied on him. Doesn't anybody realize how ridiculous this is? It doesn't matter anyway, because the media's conspiracy to lie to the American people before an election, during, by the way, what was a monstrous lie over COVID, is nowhere near the equivalent of Mark Mitchell accusing pollsters of faking numbers, which I am saying right now, Mark had the biggest faker on his show that after she released her poll, Ann Seltzer, and he did not hold her to account. There is no, that is a moral equivalence, folks. Okay. The media is bad. The media is bad. They did a bad thing. But before I tell you about it, let me prime you with this other thing. That's bad too. That's a moral equivalence. And I always love throwing in front of it a phony or a bogus moral equivalence, because it really doesn't, the term itself doesn't do enough. It doesn't do enough to explain to you what they're trying to do. There's something sinister in the intent in drawing one, okay?
But being truth tellers also means telling the truth about ourselves.
Truth tellers! Truth tellers!
We, myself included, missed a lot of this story. And some people trust us less because of it. We bear some responsibility.
Look at that wise ass. Look at that wise ass right there. Look at that smug wise ass right there. Caught in the act. Paused. Period. Is this the same? Does this even belong? Does this discussion even belong in the same 5 or 10 minute block with Mark saying that the polls are lying to you, which they are? You think I like going in the field and seeing that and knowing within the first 6 hours of field work that they're full of crap? You think I like that? They are lying. Look at him. Look at him. Look at this guy right here. Where is it? How do I do that? Oh, this guy. Look at this guy. Look at that face. Not to mention, you could probably land Trump's new Boeing from Qatar on that nose. Look at that thing. You know what? I think I said enough of my piece here. I'm going to bring in the victim of this tactic. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, it's Mark Mitchell.
The Republican pollster. Oh, man.
And that's another thing. It keeps classifying you as a Republican pollster. You believe it's like, and by the way, I remember years ago, I wrote an article, Rasmussen is right-leaning. What does that make everybody else? I remember that article. It went everywhere, including on Rasmussen Reports. Because if you're anything but in that media, if you're anything but within the, consensus of that media fake polling universe, then you're a Republican. You're right-leaning. You're a Trumper. You're this, you're that. It doesn't matter if you're right. That's how they classify you. What did you think first of all, what do you think when you see yourself being used like this, I really find this to be a gross disservice to people. I mean, this is not remotely comparable, Mark.
Well, what just upsets me, and I'll tell you what, I got a 3.5 minute spot here until I have to hit my Tony Perkins segment. So all my stuff's moving around today. But well, no, this is fine. Like, I'm glad you're covering this because, well, people told me Mark Halperin was talking about me, and I just kind of said whatever. Because the way I see him is, listen, what you have your corporatists, basically your people that want to allocate money and build a business, and they look at him, and I've seen it all the time. I came from venture. When the pitch doesn't match reality. He is not a Glenn Greenwald. He is not somebody who is an independent journalist. He's not a Matt Taibbi. He's not actually able to balance both sides, because you go on two-way and you look at the chat and everybody's like, oh, I don't like Mark's read on that. I was getting DMs all fall like, oh, Mark Halperin said something stupid and I don't believe it. And so here's the thing. If you're going to market yourself as I'm going to get the two sides talking to each other, and then you frame the argument against one side, like, you're a sham. I think you are. And maybe he's not doing it purposely. Maybe it's the 30 years in NBC or whatever. And whoever now, like, part of the problem is he's probably got a producing team writing all this stuff. And he's got to sit there and read the teleprompter or whatever. And then he's got some, Tumblr account writing stuff about Mark Mitchell, the Republican pollster from Rasmussen. Well, guess what? I'm going on a show tonight and I'm going to dump all over Republicans. I'm an equal opportunity, we're the umpire. That's the way I see us. And he didn't address our point at all. And not only that, he tried to pretend that the word fake doesn't equal habitually leftist bias. That's what it means. That's what fake news means. So fake polls mean the same thing, right? Like, that's it.
Fallacies were flying everywhere, Mark. That's what I'm talking about. The fallacies were flying everywhere. And also drawing this conclusion that you were somehow resisting the idea that the president's approval numbers have fallen. Of course they fell. He was in a honeymoon phase. He was every president falls in their honeymoon phase. The
Rich, I got to bounce.
here.
Tell me if you want to go on tonight, but this is wild. And no, I don't want to go on his show. I only go on people's show who have an objective view of reality. So thanks, Mark Halperin.
Yeah. Yeah, he clicked out. It's okay. It's all right. Yeah, thanks for jumping on real quick, Mark, honestly. And yeah, I'll go on a show. Tell him I'll go on a show. I don't know who he said, though. It was zipping in and out. Who did he say was going to be on there? I don't care. I'll go on with anybody. And that goes for Mark, by the way, who wants to, may want to explain that a little bit, because I don't know what is happening here. I mean, maybe it is the 25 years in NBC News, which is really also an MSNBC and the rest of it. I don't know. Well, that's not true. I have my suspicions. You just can't claim to know for sure what's going on in somebody's head or heart. You can't. So, I mean, honestly, but I do have my suspicions, and my suspicions are this: we all see the world through our belief systems. And sometimes when you're immersed in a culture for a certain amount of time and you harbor those belief systems, it's hard to shake them off. And what Mark said, and in case it was lit, I know he's going in and out and he had an internet issue, but he was going in and out. I hope that doesn't happen to him where he's going. But what Mark said is right. My main problem is that you cannot frame yourself to be someone who's trying to pull in both sides and then frame the argument in a manner that handicaps one side. That's the old media. They were always biased. It's like pre-Trump corruption, but we didn't call it that. We called it a bias, right? I called it a handicap. That is how it was done when he was still at MSNBC and NBC. When he did the circus for Showtime, right? Those were the tactics that were used back then. It was not full-blown water carrying or hack. It just wasn't in plain view like that. It was done because that's who they are, and that's how they were spinning it, because that's how they believed you would see it too, because that's how they see it. And yes, it came with an inherent bias. It was unfair. Only with the WikiLeaks drop before the 2016 election did it really come to light. Did everyone for the first time, who always believed that there was collaboration and collusion between the Democratic Party and the media, only then did it really come to light how bad this really was, and that we needed a new word beyond bias. This was more than a bias. This was a partnership that intended to deceive you so a party could win elections. That's not even corruption. That's deception. And at the heart of that, even back then, was Jake Tapper. All right. I dug this up from the OBD archives. I remembered it like it was yesterday. Why? Because my wife wrote it. You may have noticed the word that was being used here, and you may notice the date, November 7th, 2016. For, let's call it a month or so before this election, alternative media at sites like that some don't exist now, sites like Big League Politics, sites like ours, which was not at all right wing. We really published stories about the economy and political stories. It was a data journalism site. But you can't ignore something like this because it was a site that was an alternative media outlet, a place for people who were just tired. Like, honestly, most of PPD's traffic outside of elections came from people who wanted news from the typically tracked economic indicators, whether they were weekly ones like the initial jobless claim number or the monthly, or monthly indicators like the employment situation, otherwise known as the jobs report, the monthly jobs report, whatever it may be. Maybe you got sick of going to CNBC and reading on CNBC this paragraph of what the BLS said, followed by the writer and the entire newsroom's opinion about the economy. Like, we only were interested in the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported Thursday that weekly jobless claims came in at that is up or down from, and consensus was this. The range was a low of this to a high of that. Whether there was any historic significance in this number, and that was it. And then that was it. Period. End of story. That's what most of our work was on PPD. Of course, along with elections. And then there's markets. It's still there to this day. You can go and use some really cool tools to check out the markets and what's going on. But of course, you can't ignore a story like this. All right. You read down here. Ooh, that's an important call. You read down here, and you may notice the word collusion. The media hijacks this word later. And it's funny because the man who first uses it to refer or to characterize what the hoax, the information on, called Russia collusion, Russia hoax, let's call it the Russia hoax, was trying to allege that Donald Trump colluded. There was collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians, Vladimir Putin himself, to steal the election from Hillary Rodham Clinton. Another, along with Joe Biden being senile, massive conspiracy, fraud, lie, perpetuated by the media on you, the American public. For what reason? The same reason. The reason they always do. To win elections. To change public policy. It's the same reason they repeatedly violate suggestions or more than strongly encouraged policies that all their newsrooms adopt as internal policy. They constantly violate them because they, and I'm talking about mass shootings, because they want them. They want to affect policy. They are aligned with the Democrats, who are aligned with gun control. Couple of dead kids, no problem. Story's cooking. Second Amendment, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll right now so we can then show how many Americans, sir, want to abolish the Second Amendment or severely restrict it to effectively cut its nuts off so it means nothing. And Wolf Blitzer's here, but take note of the word. This was a commonly used word to refer to the, let's call it incestuous relationship, certainly inappropriate partnership for power between corporate media and the Democratic Party. CNN would later use it to refer to the conspiracy by the Trump campaign and the Russians, which of course never existed and was not real. You can see Wolf Blitzer in here. All right. There's a whole bunch of people in here. But hilariously, somebody else that you might find in these emails, it's good old Pablo, subject line, Pablo, in a separate email exchange that was dated April 28th. Jason Sayer, who's a writer for Jake Tapper, a trusted journalist and host of CNN's State of the Union, emailed Pablo Manriquez, now a former DNC media booker, thanking him and said he needed to know, quote, ASAP if we want to offer Jake Tapper questions to ask us, unquote. So when I go on X and I say, this is worse than it actually looks because of who it is. It's worse than how it looks. It's worse than it's being portrayed because Jake Tapper didn't suddenly do this. Jake Tapper isn't suddenly being unveiled as some hack. Jake Tapper is a cog in a huge, crooked machine, and they're all like that. And they have been like this forever. He is just the one, and the word that matters the most there, he is just the one who is the one carrying the veneer of trusted journalist, host of the flagship show on the station. He's like their Bill O'Reilly at the time. Only worse, honestly, because at least Bill O'Reilly always said, you know, we'll give you news. We deliver the news. We report on stories here. But I got an opinion. Jake is up there pretending he's fucking Walter Cronkite. You can trust me. I always tell the truth. I'm a serious journalist. So on Twitter and I say that it's worse because this is what it always is. I am not telling some story of an analogy or telling a story that's drawing some kind of an analogy. I'm being literal as literal can be. They needed Jake Tapper. They needed the story of Russia collusion laundered into mainstream circles. They picked up the phone or they got in their computer and they asked Jake Tapper to do this. He doesn't just decide what's good. They told him to do that. They told Jake Tapper, we need you for this. We need you to cover for the fact he's senile. And then when Biden flopped at the debate, they called Jake Tapper and they said, we need you again, Jakey boy. Pick up the water bucket. Start to carry, you little bitch. We need you to push Joe Biden out of the race. Jake Tapper was central to the switcheroo. It was his pressure campaign that got the switcheroo traction. Just like it was him who got the Russia collusion hoax traction. Nobody was going to give two shits about that dossier in the Daily Beast. Everyone knew about, even saw the dossier for months before. They had been trying to shop it around for months. Nobody would report it. They finally got Hacking the Daily Beast to publish it, which they paid dearly for. But it was Jake who laundered it into the mainstream, just like it was Jake who laundered the idea that questioning Biden's senility was some some Republican conspiracy. People don't think only Republicans, and definitely those fringe MAGA types, they're the only ones. I mean, this is ridiculous. Joe Biden is sharp. And all the way back here, this is dated April 28th, 2016. Let me paint the scene for you. Donald Trump is trying to put away Ted Cruz in the Republican primary. They're both doing tapes with Tapper before a debate. That debate is on foreign policy. This is the DNC, then the DNC media booker, emailing the producers, writer producers, but he sent around to the team, and they're asking the DNC, what do you want us to say? How do you want us to handle this? This is the interviews they were having with Cruz and Trump before. And you can go and look it up yourself, guys. It's still in the database. The point was to generate a or something that could be framed as a stupid foreign policy comment by either Cruz or Trump, because they were loving the fact that Republicans were killing each other in a primary. They were loving it. But they are trying to get Tapper to ask certain things that would later be used for criticism. I mean, that's it. For criticism. I gotcha moment. And hilariously, this is Tapper's team going, hey guys, we're running out of time. What do you want to tell Jake to do? What do you want Jake to ask? Hurry up. We're running out of time to get it. And honestly, it's a little incredible, because if you look at the time, it's already 1:11. What does that mean? It is incredibly difficult to put these shows on. I'm not saying Jake Tapp's a hard worker. I don't know Jake like that, other than what I know from, this in the public record. But behind the scenes, that's, by the way, why I was trying to explain to you that what Kamala Harris did to Brett Baer when they had booked that interview, how she strolled on in there late. She did that on purpose. She knows, and everyone in media knows, you can't put things together like that last minute. It's kind of a pain in the butt when Trump is president, when you do what I do, folks. Every time you think you have your topic, something happens with Trump and he changes it all up, and it's very difficult to course correct. It's not simple. It is if you just go on and blab about it, but if you want to have a thoughtful laid out segment, of course, it's difficult. In another email that's below, Sarah wrote to Manriquez thanking him for the, quote, facilitating Luis coming on today and bearing with us through a melee of GOP nonsense and cancellations and all that. Any particular points he'll want to make, we're going to stay Dem focused. Folks, what else do you need here? In response, Manriquez told Sarah he would put Dylan and Christina Frundry into the loop to see if, quote, there's any newsworthy opposition Luis can drop. I mean, my God. Frundry worked for the Iowa Democratic Party, by the way, before she got caught up in a political firestorm after she took a selfie smiling in front of a deadly New York City fire in March of 2015. These are these people. These are who these people are, folks. She was hired as a spokeswoman for the DNC in July. Do something stupid like, look at all these people burning. Ha! Let me get a selfie. Get a promotion. Window closing on this. Need to know ASAP. Want to offer Jake Tapper any questions to ask? Come on, man. Any particular points he wants to make? So, again, what are we doing here? This is a massive conspiracy. And all of this, because I really had to show you the depth of it and the history of it. That email is almost a decade old. That's how long. It's almost a decade old, guys. In fact, last month, it was 9 years old. This has been going on a very long time, and since the entire point is deference to the truth and on almost reverence for it, got to revere the truth, the concept of the truth so much Then we're going to hold both sides accountable, and the media's we're going to hold ourselves accountable, Alex says. What bravery Alex displayed. Oh, by the way, did you see what the other guy did? Really, really bad. And meanwhile, it's nowhere even in the realm of comparable. Moral equivalence. Not enough to earn back the public's trust. And I guess where I'm going with this is, someone also happened to show me a little thing of them kicking this idea around about the People's Poll. Everyone knows I own that domain. The public polling project was going to be called the People's Poll. All right. So what does this matter? In the wake, and I mean that in the funeral sense, in the wake of all of the decline of corporate media, all of these people coming forward to fill these gaps, don't we have to be careful? It's like more of the same. Does it seem to be anything different here? I mean, I'm not going to go that far and say Mark isn't doing good work or hasn't done good work. He has. And he's just I'm not picking on him. He's just happened to he put himself out there to make this point perfectly. Is this the path forward? Is this true Is it true accountability to say, I understand this is awful, and I understand we bear the burden of responsibility here, but by the way, you know what? If you want to be honest, we got to talk about this too. No, we don't. And how do you know that it's intentional doing that? It's a bit disingenuous. It's what Mark said. I don't have to defend him. He defended himself well. You didn't actually make the case that what he said or was doing on that episode with Benny was wrong or in defiance of the truth. Again, nobody's arguing the president's poll numbers didn't decline, but why are we even talking about it? Because it's completely irrelevant to the conversation that we are having. And yes, the polls are fake. It's very, very, very dishonest. It's 3:05 already. I didn't even get through any of the reads. Man, too much to talk about. Again, this is becoming a pattern. A clearly fake poll comes out the weekend before the election in the state of Iowa after a good pollster with a good track record shows the complete opposite. It's completely contradictory to all of the other data that is public and private, except for garbage pollsters who miss all the time. It was given more credence, more credit, more weight than any of the other polling that was done that day, that night, that weekend, that week. It was used to justify the central argument that there are women and Republican women. And by the way, she made that claim even though her own poll showed that it was Republican men who moved away from Donald Trump. I mean, nothing she said was remotely true. The justifications weren't true. And I guess that's what I'm saying here. This is becoming a pattern now. The justification, which was Mark being used in that moral equivalence, the justification for, taking your eye off the ball or giving this deception that the media has done as much attention as it deserves. Because in my opinion, and I think I'm being objective here, it should basically be the only thing we're focused on. Dan Street wrote an excellent article. I do want to end by reading this article. All right. I would like to have Dan on again one day. Dan's a good friend of the show. It's been a while since we've had him on because he normally came on to give us political analysis. Legal. He is a lawyer, legal analysis of the lawfare that Democrats were engaged in and will engage in again when they get power. All right. If they're not, if the institutions of power that they abuse to prosecute and persecute their political opponents are not destroyed, because they cannot be reformed. If they are not destroyed, then with the cheerleading of this media, who is using moral equivalence instead of taking accountability, true accountability. What Alex did is a charade. That's not taking accountability. And you could see the smug look on that son of a bitch's face anyway, couldn't you? Nobody cares. He's there to sell books and pretend like he gives a shit all of a sudden. They did the same thing after the Iraq War, folks. The minute a Democratic president came in, they were right back to covering everything up. This is a con. And it deserves to be treated like that constantly. We should always look at everything they say with skepticism and not believe a single word that comes out of their mouth until it's verified. Anyway, Dan is a lawyer, and he would come on to give that analysis, but he's also the author of a series of books or volumes, that are fantastic. I remember the first time I read one. I read volume 1 about fake news, and it was mostly, not all, but mostly about the Russia collusion hoax. And it was a breath of fresh air because it was written differently than a lot of these other like political books and journalist books. It was written by somebody, number one, who can write, and you can tell he can write. He's a talented writer, but he's also a lawyer. So he's just prosecuting the case. And even myself, finding myself reading these books, like, I forgot they did that. This is what I'm saying, that we have to be ever attentive. We have to be ever conscious of who they are and what they have done in order to understand the information they're delivering to us now in its proper context. And there absolutely is 100% correct. There is currently a media blackout on good pollsters. So I'm saying we need to keep our eye on them because they're up to something. And we already know from their prior behavior that the evils that they are capable of. That is their business. Their business is not truth telling. What is Mark talking about? Running clips like that of Alex, pretending that they're the guardians of the truth or whatever corny ass, completely fictitious claim he made. They are professional con artists, professional propagandists whose job it is to deceive you so that their party can win elections. And really, forget about the phrase win elections, so that their party can obtain, hold on, and consolidate power. Police state power. That is the goal. Journalists. What a load of crap. In case we need a little bit of a reminder, discover how polling in the era of Trump is just more propaganda. And by the way, thanks, Daniel, for quoting us in here. Public polling is supposed to reflect public opinion, but today it is often used to try to shape it. And I will let you go and read this, but he brings up the 100-day thing, as of course he would. More give Trump an F than any other grade for the first 100 days, poll finds. But how you see this format is how you'll see it in his books, by the way. Headline and everything. In its original font and everything. It's actually really cool. It's a really cool format. You can see NBC right there. All right. Or, yep. Well, it's MSNBC. It's in black. Right. Trump has simply gone too far as approval ratings tank to historic 100-day low. This is all a scam. So when Mark and I say the polls are fake, which is what Halpern's referring to in that segment, trying to draw his little moral equivalence, it's not the dispute that Trump's approval ratings haven't come down, but the numbers are faked so that they can have fake headlines like that. Historic 100-day low. And as Daniel points out, that's absolutely untrue. Coefficient came out today, not exactly known as a Trump alarm poll or Trump friendly poll once again. They overstated Democrat support in 2024, and even they have Trump at only -2. And, disagreeing from our +1, disagreeing from Qantas is even, disagreeing from Mark's +3, but a respectable, defendable result well within the sampling era that shows basically this narrative is bull, it's fake, but there is a point to it. Sure, he's not +18 anymore, but he's not -18 either. And I don't even know how you get to -6. That's outside the sampling error of any of these polls that are doing it. The New York Times was done very poorly. But any event, great, and you should go see it. The truth. If one considers polls from the most accurate pollsters, President Trump's approval rating is not underwater. In fact, his approval matches that of former President Obama at the start of his second term. However, President Trump's policies are more popular than him and give him room to improve his poll numbers. This is covered in a recent article over at the Washington Examiner. And then he goes on to point out the polls that were right in 2024 on Real Clear Politics. What did they say? As you can see, we are on there. But look, on the just same general area, you can throw in a little -1, -2, even -3 in there. And we're all in the same relative area. So, of course, the polls were fake. And even if they weren't, and even if what Mark was saying was a stretch, it would still be a moral equivalence. And it's not going to earn the media back their trust and integrity. All right. With that, it's 3:14 already. Why does the time fly by so fast? I did want to tell you guys it's not looking good. I'm not saying it's a special election, but why I'm saying it's not looking good is not because of the results of the special election and the mayoral race in off cycle. It's not really, but it's an off cycle mayoral race in Omaha, Nebraska, where a Democrat defeated 4-term incumbent mayor who is technically aligned as a Republican. It's this weird nonpartisan thing they do over there. She came in very weak. I think she came in at I can't remember, a third of the vote, something like that, ballpark. And I know I'm not 100% right there, but the Democratic aligned candidate came in a few points under. She was very clearly weak. It is nothing really special. There is some things we could obviously add to this conclusion, but the real conclusion that I want you to draw is that Omaha is exactly perfect to underscore, highlight, or showcase what we have been talking about with the realignment, that the Republicans are going to have to figure out what Harry Truman did. They're going to have to figure out what Truman realized, and Democrats back then had realized, after Roosevelt's coalition failed to show up to, once during midterm elections. Roosevelt had completely changed the map and the coalitions, and Democrats were taken off guard as to how they underperformed so badly during a midterm election and those that were in between. They came to realize that it is not inevitable that the working class and normies, non-coastals, flyovers, it's not an inevitability that they don't come out to vote, but you have to give them something to believe in. That they're not being given right now. All right, so that race did happen, and I'm saying it's not looking good for the simple fact that I don't think Republicans are understanding the totality of what's going on. I don't think they see the big picture, which means they're not. And not that I don't. They're not. They're not. And those, I don't want to say concerns, because it's not my job to be concerned. But I guess you could say my suspicions that Team Trump isn't taking it seriously enough, a little bit more confirmed as time goes on. One, because we repeatedly keep saying in these unforced eras, like I told you guys before, this becoming a real problem. The gatekeeper to the president is becoming a real problem, and no one's afraid to say, everyone's too afraid to say what I just said because they're afraid of her. I don't give two shits. I don't care if he hires me for polling or something. I don't give a I'm here to tell people what the deal, what is going on. So I'm mic dropping this shit, which, by the way, we're going to have these little mic dropping segments. You like my little logo? Isn't it adorable? Anyway, yeah, I'm mic dropping this shit. I told you this was stupid. Now we have Chuck Schumer saying that he's going to hold up all Donald Trump's appointments until they investigate this plane from Qatar. Anyone being reasonable, fair, or honest could realize there's no bribery. That's not what's going on. But it doesn't matter. The Trump White House, and I keep saying the Trump White House, when in truth, it's really just two people. One person, apparently, from what I'm being told. And if I'm wrong and she wants to defend herself, she's more than welcome to come on and do that, because I know you're going to hear it. Knock yourself out. Come on over. You can have the floor. Tell me where I'm wrong, because I keep hearing stories like this. I tried to get a couple of minutes with the president to explain to him this is really stupid. It's going to look like bribery and hypocrisy, and the Democrats are going to latch onto it and overshadow everything good that we're doing. But I couldn't, because she wouldn't let me. Hearing this a lot. And by the way, I'm also hearing, Pete, watch your P's and Q's. She wants you gone. She wants you gone. In fact, if she figures out a way to placate MAGA and explain to MAGA why Pete Hegseth had to go, Pete Hegseth is gone. That's her obstacle right now. Just telling you what I hear. Another stupid move. You don't take planes from the government of Qatar as gifts, and you don't execute your friends hoping that when you hand over the head to your enemies, they're going to leave you alone. Handing the heads of your friends to your enemies never placates your enemies. So I'm mic dropping that, because I told you that was going to happen. You have not heard the end of this story. This was a massive unforced error. It was incredibly stupid. And Trump, you better go take a fucking walk or something and get some air, because I don't know what you're thinking. That was incredibly. That was a noob move, bro. I mean, you've been president before. Like, what's going on here? That was a noob move. You thought what? I mean, even MAGA can't stand this. Even Jack Posobiec can't defend this, man. I mean, he's like, dude, him and my wife, like, wait a minute. At the very best, this is the security concern. Maybe they're giving you the plane so you can have security concerns, take it apart, looking for these devices. And then when they put it back together, when it falls out of the sky, they can blame you for taking the plane apart to look for devices. Because that's what Boeing be doing these days, falling out of the sky. A Boeing from Qatar? Jesus. Oh, Lord, folks, help me. It's 3:21. It's Wednesday, 3:21, which means I got a boogie. Go see my little one. All right, don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. Thanks to Mark Mitchell for showing up. We're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We're on Getter. We're on X. But the best place to follow us, of course, is on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. You can follow the link in the description, or you can click on the little hands that go support our polls. And that will take you to the Public Polling Project. You will see there's a new campaign up. Contribute if you can. Send it far and wide. I figured earlier, the better. Less pressure on me and you to get it done and get it out. All right. What else? What am I missing here? I'm not sure. Hello. Anyway, with that, that's my big one. What's up, buddy? Hey, buddy. My turkey's home. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna kick rocks. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I really do feel like I'm forgetting something. But if I am, you'll see it on Locals, or you'll see it on, well, both. You know, if it warrants getting put on X, it'll go on X. Again, thanks to Mark Mitchell. might want to check out what he's talking about later. That got thrown on me last minute, so I don't really know, but I'm always happy to join him just as he joins us and to advance and forward this conversation, So I'm with Mark 100%. When it's time to dunk on a Republican, it's time to dunk on a Republican. When it's time to dunk on a Democrat, it's time to dunk on a Democrat. But I'm not drawing these like false moral equivalences. And I'm here to tell you that there's no doubt ample ammunition to dunk, ample ammunition to criticize both. But one seems to have remarkable errors in judgment, or and some have like more errors in judgment that bother them. The other are doing things that are reckless that can destroy everything. And once one is held accountable, then maybe we can talk about holding the other one. In the meantime, stop with the bogus false moral equivalences. All right, I'm with that. I'm out. I hope it's better by your house, guys, than it is by mine. Nothing but rain and garbage. Would love to go in the pool soon.